What is up, Watch fam? Happy Monday, and welcome to this week's episode of RANT&H. I am Christian from Theo and Harris.
And I'm Anna from Theo and Harris.
And today we're going to be talking about the luxury watches we hate the most. So let's do it. All right, before we jump into the luxury watches that we hate with almost tangible passion, con passione, quick wristwatch check. What are you wearing?
I'm wearing a super cool vintage JLC.
Yep.
It's one of three that we just recently listed, and we had a whole video dedicated to the three of them.
Yep.
It has these awesome blue steel hands and really pretty patina, and I love these like military style kind of JLCs.
They're sword hands, and the custard luminous paint within them is still intact and absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
JLC, is although famous and owned by conglomerate, still an underrated and under-recognized watch brand, which is kind of funny. Most people, they go straight to Rolex, which I love. I love Rolex, but
Right.
But there's a lot of value, or they go to Patek, in kind of comp and style, and they don't have to, because there is so much value in JLC.
You're totally right.
It's called the watchmaker's watch.
Yeah.
I'm
What are you
wearing another watch that is definitely under recognized and undervalued. It's a vintage Omega Constellation. It's cased in steel. The condition itself is absolutely wonderful. The dial has patinaed or patinated to this kind of golden sunrise kind of effect.
Yeah, for sure.
Another watch that's available in the watch shop at theoandhouse.com. Vintage Constellations, again, are some of the best value. Their movements were designed, the whole line was designed on being hyper accurate and just really the pinnacle of Omega watch manufacturer.
Yeah.
And really, they're not traded as such.
Yeah, and the Constellation line has a lot of different designs, right? Like they all kind of look slightly different, which I think is really,
and they're
really cool.
distinct. They're very distinct. From case and pipe and dial, they're very distinct. Yeah. All right, let's jump into the topic here.
Let's do it.
I tasked you with finding the luxury watch, the expensive watch that is supposed to be, a pinnacle of watchmaking, whatever that might mean, that you hate the most. Mm-hmm. So what did you come up with?
Well, I don't know necessarily if my pick is even it does try a little bit to be the pinnacle of watchmaking, but this brand I would not say is pinnacle of watchmaking at all. But the watch that I chose was the Frank Mueller Crazy Hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so here's my rationale behind it. The Crazy Hours first came out in 2003, and that design I don't have as much of a problem with. It was just very simple, black and white, like an artsy design. It was kind of the first of its kind. It's a very interesting design in that if you don't know what it is, the hours are supposed to be like randomly dispersed on the dial.
Yep.
So it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll go like 1, 8, 3, or whatever it is. So it's like different. And initially it was positioned as like it's a different interpretation of how to tell the time, and it makes you think differently about what time means and all that stuff. All that stuff. That one's a semi-attractive watch. I think it does look nice.
Okay.
And those trade for around like 8,000 or 10,000 now. The first problem I have with this design, even in its more simplistic iteration, is that we have a standard of how you tell time. When you look down, you don't necessarily have to see, it's pointing at the 2. You kind of know by where it is on the dial, which is why hour markers work.
Right.
But with this, even though you can see the numbers because they're Arabic numerals, it just complicates things.
Right.
It's not very useful.
Right.
So it makes it harder to tell the time.
Right.
And it's kind of artsy, but it's not like its complication is anything magnificent. And even they've been producing them to today.
It's not even complicated, really.
It's not at all. And really, what it is,
it's a time-only watch with a fucked up dial.
And it doesn't go around like crazy, like on switching for hours. It goes 5. It goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's where the 2 is. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where the 3 is. It just goes by 5s.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. And now this is what horrifies me.
Oh wait, so time out. So the hour hand does point to the correct number, but the correct number is not in its traditional corresponding location. Okay. That's just confusing.
It's not
the
even
Crazy Hours. It's the what the time is it watch?
Exactly, and it's not even random, so it's not like it's special. It just goes around by 5. It just seems ridiculous. So now what's crazy is that the sort of modern designs are hideous in my opinion.
Okay.
They've put more numbers on the background,
Yeah.
and then they've colored the dials and in some cases made them like rainbow numbers. So now the numbers are disorganized, and they're every color, and there's a background with more numbers on the background. I think it's hideous.
Yeah.
And the complication, although now they say it's made by Frank Muller, when initially it was just Etta, is still the exact same thing. It still just moves by 5.
Wow.
So nothing crazy going on here, and yet they claim to be the pinnacle of like...
Frank Muller was a funny brand. It got real big popularity in the early 2000s. It was a watch that was looked at as, super expensive, and it was a real, like, kind of, big luxury watch. I know quite a few people that bought these watches at retail, but I would bet anything that I have or own on the fact that those watches are not trading at those numbers.
Yeah.
Those watches are probably trading for gold weight or a little bit above, or part worth, whatever they're worth in their parts. And that's basically it. I bet you that those dealers at this point are just trying to keep some sort of a semblance of value, but I doubt those watches are trading anywhere above $10,000. I bet anything they're trading in the 5s. And even then, dealer to dealer, not dealer to client, because who the hell is going to assume that much inventory of a brand that nobody wants, of a watch that makes no sense? What a disaster.
Total disaster.
Truly, yeah. So the watch that I went and chose does not hurt my head as much as the watch that you chose.
Yeah.
The watch that I chose is it's the Patek Neptune. Okay, it's a steel sports watch,
Bad watch.
by Patek Philippe that came out in the 1990s, not too much before the Crazy Hours. A watch that to me says one thing. When you do something that's really incredible, like you flip the bottle and like it lands perfectly.
Right.
The
most incredible.
The most incredible thing. It's the most incredible thing. You do. It's like everyone's like, "Wow, he did it!" Or you walk away on a basketball court and you throw the ball and it just goes in and swoosh like behind your head. And that's incredible, right? It's like, wow, they did that thing. And then it's like your friend saying, "Do it again." And you trying and you failing miserably, or you falling and breaking your leg. That's what this watch reminds me of, right? Patek introduced the Nautilus in the 1970s, and it was, it's become one of the most important watches ever to be manufactured, ever. Okay, and then Patek's second attempt at producing a steel sports watch was the Neptune, which just goes to show the Nautilus was not a Patek design, right? Patek Philippe designs traditional watches, traditional precious metal watches, sometimes complicated, often time only, right? Real traditional horology pieces. And the Nautilus was not a Patek. The Nautilus was a Gerald Genta,
Right.
And without Genta or without another designer designer of equal ability, Patek has no ability to create, a traditional or a truly great and impressive steel sports watch,
Right.
At all. So people praise the Neptune, and on the internet, when you see someone praising the Neptune, it's only because they have a Neptune they're trying to sell you. It's a looking watch. I'm not saying it's a bad watch in its parts. It seems like the finishing on the watch itself is difficult. It's polished and brushed with an integrated bracelet. It seems pretty hard to do that, but that being said, who cares? It's still an ugly watch. I don't care how difficult it may have been to make. It's ugly. The movement inside is a movement that Patek has used many times. That is not bad by any means. It's a great, automatic. I think it's a micro-rotor Patek Philippe movement. No problem. But the watch itself is ugly. It's clunky. The bracelet is designed after fish scales. The bezel on certain models is like sun ray. It's just so ugly.
That's bad.
And again, it just reminds me of saying, giving your friend who wants you to think that they're like this incredible ability. They can shoot half court behind their back whenever they want. They're the best. I'm the Nautilus. And then saying, do it again, and him going, and then you pushing him, do it again, and he does it. And he slips and breaks his leg, like The Office, Will Ferrell in The Office.
So it sounds like it's not necessarily deceptive as much as it just is like in poor taste.
It's not a bad watch.
Yeah.
It's not a bad watch.
And the parts are fine, and the
it's
movement's
an ugly watch that
Yeah.
I can't really imagine anyone wanting that isn't really blinded by the fact that, it's a $10,000 steel Patek. Well, so what?
Well, that's exactly how I feel with the movement for the Frank Muller. I think that's more deceptive, if anything, nothing else.
Right.
This fine watchmaking, and it's nothing
not
like that at all.
Yeah, very different kinds of bad, but I
Yeah.
agree that we both have reason to hate these watches.
Yeah.
And that's it. Thank you so much, Anna, for sitting down with me to have this
for having me.
conversation. You guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like it below and subscribe to our channel at Theo and Harris. And don't forget to check out the watch shop Like
Find watches like these.
All right. See you guys later.